Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today. So I guess you have noticed something a little different in the title of this video. So if you've been around for a while, you know the series has been called Knit with Noma, but from now it's going to be called Noma's Designer Diaries. And the reason being that I want to focus this podcast more on my experiences as a designer, the stuff that I'm working on, and everything else is going to stay the same, but I want to dive in much deeper on the design process, talk to you about the projects that I'm frogging, talk to you about designs that didn't work out, and stuff that I've decided to stop, even though it looks okay, but it's not really cohesive with the branding. So it's going to be a little different in the designing perspective because I want to delve in a little deeper on that one. I noticed when I was doing my podcast in the past year or so that I would go for a couple of weeks, even months, without recording because I'll be feeling like I'm not making much progress. So unlike a podcast where someone is knitting maybe other people's designers and you don't have to stop and have some complications and redesign, there is a bit of a challenge when you're doing your own designs because you can work on a full project and frog it at the end because it's not working out well or it's not looking so good and you can't even pass it on, but you need to reuse that yarn for a different idea. So I wanted to show the whole process with the back and forth and the stuff that works and the stuff that doesn't work out, and maybe how long it takes sometimes for one design to come from idea to publication. So it's going to be much deeper than what it used to be. So that's why I decided to call it Noma Designer's Diaries because it's going to show a lot of the behind the scenes part of pattern creation that maybe you may not be exposed to if you're a knitter. So I'm so excited about this. Nothing much is changing. I'm still showing you all the stuff that I'm doing. So it's just getting a deeper perspective of what it takes to, design a pattern, make it work, and put it out there and share it with the world. So share your thoughts in the comments and let me know what more you want to see on this channel, and I'll be very excited to incorporate it into this new space. So as you'll notice, this is going to be episode 1 because the format that I was using has been changed and I'm now starting on a new format, but that's just about the changes that I'll be doing on this platform. So let's get started with the stuff that I launched but didn't share with you in the past few months because I haven't been online for a while. I'll start off with this, the Kruger Cowl. So I didn't share this because when I last recorded the last video, I hadn't even shared the work in progress. So this was the Kruger Cowl using some leftovers from the Kruger Shawl that I did in 2023. I keep forgetting that we're now in 2025. So this shawl is worked flat in the bias. So as you can see, it's not exactly some straight knitting, it's worked in the bias, and then you join together the ends, use and graft them together so that it looks seamless. Let me see, I can't even remember where I think this was color 1 and this is color 24. So it's joined here. As you can see, you can't even tell. It looks almost seamless. It just keeps going in the round. So I really enjoyed working on this. It's very simple to knit and the rushed pattern really makes the yarn pop. I used an advent set that I got from Miss Lamotte yarns. I think this was maybe 3 years ago. So I've had it for a while and I used it for the Kruger rep last year and Kruger Shawl. And then I had only about maybe 10 or 11 grams left. So here, mini skeins are very generously sized. Let me start off with that. I think they're about 25 grams each, so you do get a lot out of a single mini skein. So I was able to use the 24 colors for the shawl, and I've also been able to use them for the cowl as well. So each color section takes about 9 grams. So that isn't much yarn, but it looks quite big. I am kind of reluctant to put it on because I don't want to disturb the mic, but as you can see, it's a very large cowl. You can actually twist it and wear it double when it's really cold, or you can just put it on like this and cover your shoulders depending on your weather and what you need to achieve with the shawl. Okay, I'm trying not to touch the microphone, and it's much harder than I thought. Yeah, so you can wear it whichever way. It's super hot here. Let me take it off. And it's a fun one to knit. And it's not exactly the quickest project to knit, but it takes as much maybe as a small shawl or a small wrap. So this is now available on Ravelry and Etsy. And I'm really loving this cowl. I can't wait for our winter. And it's like 4 months or 5 months away, but it's super hot right now, like super, super hot. It's going to rain today. It's cloudy, it's overcast, but the heat is just on another level. And then the other project that I launched late last year, this was the last pattern I launched last year, is the Vathiswa Cowl. So here it is. So the Vathiswa Cowl is also worked from the top down, and it starts from somewhere up here with this little with the back neck, and then the increases are worked down on the sides, and you work all the way down. So the back is longer than the front. Okay, let me show you from the front so you can see. So this collar is such a nice addition to my wardrobe. I've never done it before. This was my first one, and I'm really loving this. And I love the fact that the colors are very neutral and it can blend with any of the coats that I have. And it's got a turtleneck as well. So the yarn that I used for this one is Yama yarns by Madeline, and the colors are brushed copper. The main color, this one here, is brushed copper, and the dark brown is Ursus or Ursus. I'm not so sure of how to pronounce that name, but I'll include it in the description box below. And then the light one is faded khaki, this light beige like shade. So this is merino linen worsted, so it's a blend of 90% South African merino wool and 10% linen. I love the feel and the texture of this yarn, and the light hairiness that just makes it more I don't know, it gives it more character, and I think it makes this stitch pattern pop. I'm really loving this, and I can't wait to use it. So I've never worn it, obviously, because I finished it right at the beginning of summer or end of spring, I think, and now it's been super hot, and temperatures are only going to cool down probably maybe in March, end of March towards April. I'll most likely only wear it in winter, really, because it's quite a warm piece. And then the third item that I launched, this was launched earlier this year, is the Boardwalk Shawl. So the Boardwalk Shawl is knit with some Miss Lamotte merino twist yarn in the color Boardwalk. So I wasn't creative with naming this one. I named it after the yarn, and it's such an easy one to knit. I had so much fun just working on it. It was my mindless project in November and early December. I just kept on knitting on this one, and initially I had a lace edging that I had planned, and when I started working on it, it didn't look so nice. I decided to just keep it simple and do a cable and rib edging, and I really love this even more than the lace that I had planned, because it looks more modern and it gives it a very simplistic yet elegant look. It's a single skein shawl, and you can make it much larger with more skeins of yarn. The only tricky part would be just checking the multiples of the stitches for the edging, so that you can have enough stitches to do the edging and just follow the charts, and then you're sorted. So it's not that complicated. As long as you've been really knitting shawls for a while, it won't be so difficult to modify this to something bigger. So yeah, that's all of the launch stuff and last year's stuff that I wanted to catch up on with you, and I'm hoping that I won't have to do such a long catch up in the future. I'll be recording more. So let's start off with what I'm wearing right now, as usual. So I have this beautiful little top, And I've done a video on this some time back. I think it was when was it? Sometime late last, no, or maybe early last year. So I did a video talking about this top and how it was designed and constructed. Right now at this moment I've totally forgotten the name, which is very weird because I've got like 200 designs and I rarely ever forget the names of my patterns, but I know it will come to me and I'll let you know. But in the meantime, let's just talk about it. It's a top that I've worn so much, and it's knit with nurturing fibers, eco cotton yarn, and the color is London. So it's a gray yarn that's got some teal, pink, purple speckles. It's a very beautiful yarn and I enjoyed working with it. It's a DK weight, and I used 4 millimeters for the ribbing, and I changed to 4.5 to give it a more flowy, relaxed look. So I'll also include some pictures on this one. Can't believe I still do not remember the name. It's been such, I think this is more than 3 years old, and I think the disadvantages of having a larger portfolio of patterns, which I hadn't noticed, is that now I forget the names more often than back in the day. So it flares out here because the stitches are literally doubled from here to here, and I did a bind off. But like I said, I've got a full video where I'm talking about this top and all the details that you need about how the construction came about and what I like about it and all the fun stuff regarding this construction of the top. So that's what I have on today. And the other thing, I've washed this so many times. I think last summer I was wearing it almost every other week and getting it washed, sometimes in the machine, though I normally try to wash my knits by hand. But the yarn has really held up. There's just a tiny bit of some peeling, but you can't even see it that much. It's really not showing when you're wearing or when someone is off at a distance. So it's a favorite of mine. I love this yarn and I've worked on it so many times. I think I've got more than 25 designs with this eco cotton yarn, and I've got more coming up later on, but that will be on the video on what I'm planning for the spring and summer knitting. But for now, this is the top that I'm wearing for today, and I'll share some of the stuff that I've finished working on and some works in progress. Of course, there's quite a lot, and some projects that are in hibernation. Okay, next up there is the Gugulethu Shirt. It's a button down shirt. So this one was inspired by those, you know, fancy designer cashmere button down shirts. I don't know if you've seen them in magazines or online, but they're these very fancy cashmere tops that are buttoned down. They look like regular shirts, but they are actually made out of yarn instead of, you know, the cotton fabric or silk or whatever other fabric that people use. So I decided to design one using Myak. Initially, when I came up with this idea, because it's been like languishing at the back of my head for a while, I had initially planned to design with their baby cashmere lace yarn, but it was discontinued just before I ordered the yarn. So I ended up using the baby yak lace by Myak, and the color is Oatmeal. I ordered this yarn from some shop in the United States. I'm not so sure of the name anymore, but I think it's got something, the name has got something fabulous, but I don't remember. So when I initially started working on this project, I ordered 6 skeins of yarn because I had planned to knit it as a lace weight garment, and it was working out just fine. The knitting wasn't bad. I was using 3mm needles, but as I was progressing and when I was trying it on and feeling the texture of the fabric and how thin it was, I noticed that I'll have very limited wearability of the shirt because it will be too thin for me to wear on cooler days and yet too thick for me to wear on warmer days. So there were going to be very few perfect weather days where there is a breeze and it's slightly cool, but it's not that cold. So I figured that could be maybe 2 out of 365 days in a year. So I decided to go for an option where I double the yarn and knit the project so that I can wear it on much cooler days or even cold days and put on a top underneath or a camisole and I'll be fine. So I had to restart the project, but now the problem was that if I was holding the yarn double, that meant I won't have enough yarn. I would have to order some more yarn, which I did. I ordered 2 more skeins of yarn, and then when I got the yarn, the dye loads were of course different because it had been at least a year in between the first time I ordered the yarn and the time I had started working on this on the second sample, having frogged the lace weight one. The challenge was that now the 2 skeins that I ordered were much darker than the initial color that I had. So now there is like some color issues, as you can see. I don't know if you noticed, but it's 2 shades. The top half of the shirt is a different shade, but when you get to the bottom it gets darker, and the button band, I'll turn it around, the button band and the collar is darker, and it doesn't really show that much, and it doesn't really bother me at all because I had the same issue with this top. I don't know if you'll notice, but I can put a photo. It's lighter at the top and darker at the bottom, but it's still wearable. So what I ended up doing with this is that when I was moving to the bottom of the garment, when I realized that I don't have enough yarn, I saved 2 skeins and I had to hold the old yarn and the new yarn so that it doesn't really get drastically different. So it looks blended. I tried fading it in and striping it with some main 2 colors that I'd used here, whilst changing 1 thread at least. I'll have the darker one and 2 light ones and 1 dark and 1 light, until I got to a point where I was just doing the darker, the 1 light and 1 dark throughout. So the blending wasn't so bad, but it still shows. But what I want to talk about more are the features of this shirt. But first, so the collar ended up being slightly shorter than what I wanted. Initially, I wanted it to be about an inch longer than this, or maybe even half an inch, but I ran out of yarn and I wasn't about to start ordering again. So for those who do not know, just ordering those 2 skeins of yarn cost me about maybe close to $100 to ship 2 skeins, like 2 50-gram skeins, 100, and that is like 100 grams. It cost almost $100 to ship, and then there were taxes. I paid about 450 rands, which is close to maybe $23–24. So it's really a tedious process to ship yarn and get yarn into the country. I decided that I wasn't doing it anymore. I'll just leave it as it is. It's slightly shorter, but if I do get a way to get some yarn without having to travel, maybe if there's someone who's going to the United States, then I can ask them to bring me the 2 skeins, or no, not even 2 skeins, a single skein. But the other challenge is that if it's a different shade from those 2, I'll be adding on another shade of yarn. So I'm thinking of just leaving it as it is. But let's talk about the features. So I followed the features that you get on shirts. I did this split here. So most of the time with shirts, you find that the box split is the one that's on the outside, this part here. But because this is yarn, it felt so bulky compared to when it's just regular fabric. So I decided to do an inverted pleat instead on the outside. This is what you see at the back to, you know, make it even roomier. And then I did this double knitted band here just to give it structure. And you normally see that with these button down shirts. So most likely you get the split somewhere down here. But if I had put it here, it would have looked bulkier. So I decided to keep it right at the top, since I was working with a much thicker yarn. Had it been less weight yarn, I could have even put this split down here, which is where you normally see it in button down shirts. And then, well, I worked all the way down, and here by the shoulders as well. After picking up the stitches, I did the same thing. And I worked all the way down to the body, and you'll notice that there's a pocket. I still need to fix this because I think I didn't sew it up nicely. This is just a stockinette pocket. It's a patch pocket, and the button bands are double knitted. So The one major thing I have to fix before I take photos for test knitting on this shirt is the buttonholes. So initially when I did the buttonholes, I had slightly bigger buttons. They're exactly the same, but they are slightly bigger. But when I was sewing them on, they didn't look as good as the smaller ones. They seemed to take up more space and they were like in your face. So I went for the smaller ones, but that meant that the buttonholes are slightly larger. So I'm going to just sew them down a little bit. And when I'm writing the pattern, I'll write for this size of buttons instead of the bigger ones. So it's going to be fine on your end when you're working on the pattern. And then the other interesting feature that I added on this one is this part. Okay, these buttons keep getting open because of the size. Okay, so on the sleeve cuff, I did exactly what you find on shirts. I worked on this section here, so it's open with some double knitting. And when I got to this point, I bound off all the stitches, and then I picked up the stitches again, but on the back loop, so that I could create this line here. And it's the same thing I did even on this top. So that creates a very steady fabric when you're moving from one section to the next and you just do the bind off. It's very firm and sturdy, and I was able to pick up slightly less buttons than I did here, so that brought the cuff in without necessarily worrying about working some extra decreases. And this is how this looks on the inside, and on the outside of the cuff, this is how it looks. So I really love this. This is my favorite feature, really. And I think it's going to be quite a lot of work writing the pattern, but anyway, I'm loving it. And then the collar was also double knitted, and that was quite a bit of some work, but I love the final look. So it's, the double knitting takes a bit of some time, but it's totally worth it, I must say. And so when it's buttoned here, it looks like this. I'm trying to hold it up and show it. Yeah, so this is the button down shirt. I'm so proud of this, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. It will probably be coming out late March or early April, because the focus is to make this one of the spring collection items. So that's when it will be coming out. And then the next thing I want to share with you is a shawl that I designed, knitted and finished last year. The Nyezi shawl. So this has been done for quite a while. I put out a call for test knitters when I was still trying to get everything done, and I was going to have it tested maybe a week after putting out the call. And then I realized that the writing of this pattern was more complicated than I thought, and it required, I don't know, I can't say it required more attention to detail, but there were large repeats of the pattern and it was quite complicated. So I decided to put it on hold, and then this month I worked on it. So the test is starting today. It's been edited, it's been written, everything is now in order. So it's going to be tested starting today, and I think it will be out mid-March. That's when it's coming out. You use 2 skeins of decay weight yarn, so you work the first half with one skein and the second half with the other. So I've included this on the pattern as well, but I just wanted to share with you. So what I do when I'm working on such a pattern is I take both skeins of yarn, remove labels and weigh them. So the one that's slightly smaller is the one that gets worked first. Sometimes of course they are equal, but most of the time the two skeins are never really exactly the same. There could be like a 1 or 2 gram difference for some reason. So I take the smaller one and work with it first, and make sure that even when I'm coming to the end, I don't use up every scrap of yarn, so that there is enough for when I'm working with the second skein and working on the second half, there is enough yarn to do the decreases up to the tip. So that's how I do how I work on these 2 skein projects. I remove labels and any tags or whatever that's there on the yarn, and weigh the 2 and work with the smaller one first, so that I don't have any problems. So this has got some very beautiful cables. It's ribbing with these very intricate beautiful cables, and this makes a beautiful statement shawl. it will be out, as I mentioned, in March, mid-March. And then the next project that I've got going on is a set of hats. So these hats are going to be simple and, you know, very wearable, like your everyday hats. I've finished one pattern so far with 2 samples, because the first sample is a plain one. As you can see, this is a simple and plain knitted hat. It's this long when it's not folded. So when I fold it, it becomes like a regular length hat with a very generous brim. So it's basic gripping, easy to knit, and very comfortable to wear. It starts with a tubular cast on and worked all the way up to some decreases on the crown. And the yarn I'm using for this is Cowgirlblues Merino DK, and the color is Silver Fox. And then the second sample uses the same yarn, Cowgirlblues. There's Silver Fox and Natural. I think their plain cream is Natural. So with this one, I had to do it a little different because of the striping. So if I had done the striping and made this hat just like this one, this would have been the problem on the brim. You would have had these lines where I'm carrying the yarn up, showing when you fold the brim. So I had to make it different and use a provisional cast on first, work a certain length, and then join the 2 together so that you have this double material here. I don't know if it makes sense, but you've got this double material here, and then you work up to your decreases as per normal and do the decreases. So this is how this second sample looks. When it's folded, you literally have got 3 layers, so it's much warmer than the other one. So this is going to be the same pattern in the collection of 5. So there'll be 6 samples but 5 patterns. This one is 1 pattern. So even though I'm going to launch this as an ebook, the patterns are also going to be available individually, just in case you're interested in just 1 pattern and not 2. Okay, my voice is suffering a bit. I don't know why I felt a little cough this morning, and now my voice is going. Okay, this is the other one that I'm working on, part of the collection. It's another ribbed hat. Like I said, it's very basic hats. This one has, the stripes are not exactly equal. Some have got 5 and others have got 4 stitches. So I also did the same as I did with the striped hat here, by doubling and folding this so that when you have your brim folded, you have the same pattern all around. So this was because this is the wrong side. So had I just done it plain, when you have your head folded, it would look like this, which is okay. I mean, I've seen hats like that and I don't mind, but I wanted the finishing to look the same throughout the entire hat, right from the brim to the crown. So that's why I did it this way. And the yarn that I'm using here is let's see, I've got the tag in here. So it's Bare Naked Wools by Knitspot, and the yarn is Better Breakfast Worsted in the color Daybreak. It's a very beautiful yarn to knit with. I think the other yarn that I worked with that felt as good as this one was Purl Soho Good Wool for my Gugulethu Shawl. So it's slightly heathered. I don't know if you can see this. It's slightly heathered, but it's a woolly wool, and it feels so good, particularly with these types of needles. It just, the combination of this kind of rustic yarn and these metal needles just makes it so amazing as a knitting experience, and I'm really enjoying working on it. It's not, your typical smooth yarn, but it just feels so good when you're knitting. If you've had a similar experience with this type of yarn, please let me know in the comments, or it's just all in my head, but I'm really loving the process of this one. So this is the second hat in the series. And then the third one, I forgot to mention, so the first 2 hats that I'm knitting are for my sister and her friend. My sister now lives in the United States, in Arizona, so she asked me to make some hats for them. Initially they were meant for Christmas, but we decided on it a little too late, so they'll get the hats later on in the year. I'll send them through when I'm done with the patterns. So that's why I'm doing all these grays. It's because this one is going to be mine and these two are not going to be mine. They'll be leaving as soon as I'm done with the photography and everything, writing the patterns, launching the ebook. They'll be leaving. So this other one is black. It's a bit of some, well, it's almost black. Maybe it's some dark charcoal. Let me put the needles nicely. That's the other head that I'm working on. This one took a number of attempts to get right. It's also ribbing. So the remaining two are going to be mainly stockinette. But these ones are just ribbing, different styles of ribbing. So this one is a 4x2 and 2x2, I guess. So the rib pattern is not exactly equal. As you can see, this is how it looks. I love the construction. So this one is going to be double, a double head. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I'm going to work all the way to the brim of this one and then add another color and work it again. So it's double layered. I've always wanted a second one since I did the Kanya hat. So the second half will be knit either with this gray, but I've already got another gray, or with this beige. I'm still deciding, I'm not sure. So if you've got any recommendations, please share. Whichever one has more recommendations, I'm going with it, because a part of me wants the gray, but I'm doing a gray already. But at the same time, the brown will also come in handy, and yet I'm trying to think what will it blend with. But the black is definitely going to come in handy. So the yarn that I'm using here is Miss Lamotte Twist Sock, and the color is Nightmare. So it's not a very blackety black because it's hand dyed, but it's dark enough to be almost black. So it's really going to be quite an addition in my wardrobe. And then the other yarns that I've got here, Nurturing Fibres. This one is Luna, and the silver one, what's the name of the silver one? I think it's called Silver. I'll have to recheck. But I think those are the colors. Let's see what else I've got. Oh yeah, more works in progress. I've got the Nyezi Pullover. It's gotten so heavy. Let me hold it up for a second. This is the Nyezi Pullover. It's a textured pattern. I've been working on it for so long. I don't remember when I started it, but this is how it looks. And this is the back. So it's got the similar construction as the Vathiswa Cowl. Starts off at the back neck with just the stitches for the back neck, and then the increases are worked on the sides all the way down. And it's a drop shoulder crew neck, and I did some crochet edging here. I'll probably be doing a video to show this, the instructions on how to do this. And the sleeves have the same texture and very long cuffs in 1x1 ripping. So initially when I was starting on this, I had done it 2x1 ripping, but it looked so boring and I wanted to mix the textures, so I did 1x1 ripping instead, and I'm loving it. Let's see. Okay, yeah, it's the same on the side and the edging as well at the bottom. So I'm almost done with the body. I think I'm left with about 3 inches before I do some long ripping as well at the bottom. The yarn I used for this is Purl Soho Plenty in the color ash gray. It's a very beautiful yarn and it's very thick. It's a worsted weight, but it's super thick and warm and cozy, but it peels, which is quite normal with this type of softness that you get on the yarn. It really peels quite a bit. So mostly with this yarn that peels, I normally keep my garments inside out. I find that it peels less because there isn't much friction on the outside. Okay, it doesn't peel less, but the appearance of the outside part of the garment isn't really affected that much compared to when I'm keeping it normally as it is right now. So it's a beautiful yarn. Just for the record, it peels and it's super soft. So it's one of those situations where you've got to choose your heart. But I've noticed in my case that when I use yarn, no matter how beautiful it is, if it's itchy, I can't wait for a long time. So it ends up just sitting there. So I'd rather have a yarn that peels, but that is very wearable, and in that way I get more out of the garment than if I don't if I choose a yarn that's pretty, doesn't peel but is itchy. So I've used this yarn before on the Tato Pullover. It's a striped one with the color Heirloom and Night Sky. So that's the other one I've worked on, and I really enjoyed wearing that one this winter. I think I've spoken about it a couple of times on previous episodes. The sleeves were much bigger, so I could layer and put on more items underneath, but it was such a comfortable one to wear, and I'll keep on wearing it and working, I think, with the same yarn. So I've mentioned this before on so many episodes, but the yarn that I use from Purl Soho is sponsored. I didn't pay for it. I only sometimes pay taxes on the sponsored yarn if it's international, because somehow it's around 70% or sometimes even close to 100%. So I don't pay for the yarn itself, the one from Purl Soho. But if I'm unfortunate and they choose to ignore that it's a gift, sometimes I have to pay for the taxes, which almost costs the full price of buying the yarn, which is kind of horrible. But hey, you never know what's happening in those offices when they decide whether you pay or you do not pay for the custom duty. And then the next item I've got is a cardigan. So this is part of the spring collection, but I started working on it because it was a thicker one and I wanted to launch it as early as possible, not deep into spring. So this is the back. It's a saddle shoulder construction, and the front. So I think I'll show more on this when it's because I'll be done with the body soon. But for now, it's a bit of a challenge to show it because it's hoppling all over the place. But it's got stripes and some satin sleeves. And right now, I'm about to start on the next stripe. I think if I work on that black stripe, do another cream, and then the last stripe, then I'm doing the ripping. So it's almost done. And then the next thing, I'll do the button band, put on the buttons. I've already bought the buttons. And then work on the first sleeve, then it will be up for testing. So I'm trying to get this worked as quickly as possible. You know, there's a yarn that's really making me feel like sneezing or coughing. I don't know which one, but there is among the yarns here. So I really feel like I should be coughing or sneezing. I'm trying to hold it in. So once I'm done with the first sleeve and the neckband and everything, I'll most likely put it up for testing. And then it will launch sometime in April before it gets too warm for those in the northern hemisphere. Oh, by the way, the yarn I'm using here is African Expressions Harmony. This is color 2000 and the black is 2081. It's a local South African brand that sells quite a number of yarns, and this is the other African Expressions Harmony. This color is 2027. I have a cone of this color, so I just put them in a bowl, and it's the same even with this one. I've got a big cone and I just wind balls to make the knitting much easier. This one has the same construction, but it's a cabled pattern. So as you can see, there are cables here and this textured pattern. I wanted to avoid using the, sit stitch or moss stitch and just do a different pattern, and I'm really loving this and how it's turning out. And the neck is still double length. I haven't folded it down because I want to do a tutorial on this, and until then it will just be a funnel neck for now. Oh, sorry about the needles making noise. So this is what's going to be done. I'll fold it down and then I'll do a tutorial showing how I'm joining it down here at the bottom. And then I've just started on the sleeve, so I worked on the body a bit until I ran out of yarn at this point, and I've started on the sleeves. So I'm not liking the sleeve, so I'll have to frog it. So what I had done here was that I had just taken the center panel of the pattern, this panel up to here, instead of taking these braided cables. But the sleeve looks plain and it's got too much of the filler stitch here. So I'm going to frog this. I hadn't really gone far, I just done maybe 1.5 repeats of the pattern. No, just 1 repeat, not 1.5. So I'm going to frog it and then include these stitches here and make them and put the braid as well, so that there are just fewer stitches with this pattern. The decreases are going to be very they're not going to be very sharp, they're going to be spaced, so I don't want to have too much of this stitch on the sleeve itself. I'd rather have the actual cabled pattern on the sleeve. So I'm working on this on 5mm needles, whereas I'm working on this one on 4.5, on the cardigan on 4.5, since it's a basic stitch pattern. On the other on this pullover rather, I'm using 5mm needles because of the cables and how the fabrics actually comes closer together and doesn't relax like it does here on plain stockinette. So I have to do the sleeve, and then it will be I'll be writing the pattern this week, and then it will be up for testing maybe next week and coming out late March, yeah, maybe, or early April. So yeah, that's all the stuff that I am currently working on. It's three garments and 2 hats. So there are 2 more hats that I have to cast on, but they are very quick ones because they are mainly stockinette stitch, but they are also going to be interesting enough for you to hopefully love. And then the last item that's currently hibernating, this one is going to be sitting out for a while until the cooler weather comes. This is the wrap cardigan that I started in January last year, still on my needles. As you can see, I had made some progress though. It uses half fisherman rib, but then when I was doing my increases, I noticed, you know, with the half fisherman rib, the raw gauge can be tricky. You never know what you're gonna get until you start working on it. And I noticed that the increases for the front were too rapid, and I was almost getting to the other end before I could get to the length that I wanted. This is going to be a bit cropped, but still I need to at least finish the increases and the shaping maybe 6 inches below this point. So I was already almost there by now, and I figured I need to rework this, start working on it, not rework the whole thing, but rework the fronts. So most likely I'll frog the fronts to this point up here and do a more gradual increase, so that you don't get to the end of the wrapping part before you get to the desired length of the garment. I don't know if I'm making sense on that one. So I'll frog these front sections and start working on them more gradually instead of the rate of increase I was using at the moment. I think that is all. So this is going to be sitting out for a while until maybe around June, because I've got a lot of summer items to knit. The next video will be focusing more on the summer items I want to work on. I'm hoping I'll be done with these garments and ready to start on my summer designs. This year I want to start early because I want to do more than the 3 or 4 that I sometimes end up publishing, because I'll be still busy trying to finish winter items. So on my last episode I had mentioned that I've got 2 white garments that I need to knit. So those ones are still coming up, and I'm going to knit them sometime in April, I think, so that I can have them ready for winter, because I need to wear them here when it's winter, which is June, July, August. So if I can finish them by then, that'll be perfect, and I'll write the patterns with plenty of time, get them tested, so when it's fall in the northern hemisphere, the patterns will be ready and out. So I think that plan is going to work just fine. And that's all that I have to share with you today. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for embracing the new changes that I've put into play. I hope they work out just well for me and for you as well. So share whatever thoughts you have and the types of videos that you want to see on this channel. I'll be happy to take a look into them and see how I can put everything together for you. Thank you for joining me. Bye bye.